Hi, I'm Chike Coleman, that's Sandford Hess, and this is Real Reviews Rewind, the show where we rewind the clock a little bit and talk about some older films. Occasionally we'll talk about newer films, but that's for another time. This week, in honor of October being just around the corner, I decided to tackle one of my childhood fears by doing a double feature of the original Child's Play and the Child's Play remake 2019. Both are starkly different films by very different directors. And for me, I always had a very, I'll call it now, irrational fear of the doll Chucky because I saw the commercials for it on the USA Network and it freaked me out. Now, as a 32-year-old man who's a film critic and a film reviewer, I decided to conquer my fears this week and try again. So first up is the 1988 Child's Play. This was a film starring Catherine Hicks, Alex Vincent, and Brad Dourif. Brad Dourif went on to voice Chucky for the entire series of films through to Curse of Chucky.
What number was that?
I think 7 would be the correct answer. 6 or 7. In this film, you have a man, Charles Lee Ray, being chased after by a cop.
Detective Mike.
And he gets wounded by Detective Mike mortally in a toy store. And for some reason, Charles knows incantations. So he transfers his soul to the body of a good guy doll. This doll that is supposed to be your very, very best friend. And from that, the toy store blows up. And then you meet Andy and Andy's mom. And Andy's mom is one of those non-stereotypical single mothers you'd see in 1988 that exist, who just wants to do the best by her son and wants to really kind of make him feel better about where he lives and the fact that he doesn't have a dad. So she finds a store with his favorite toy, but they're all sold out. But then she gets one from a back alley. Would it be fair to call that man a hobo?
Sure, he was a hobo.
And what ensues is you have Alex Vincent's character Andy getting the good guy doll he's always wanted, and he spends time with the doll, and they enjoy each other's company, and the doll says cute little catchphrases. But then all of a sudden, basically, you find out through the best camera work I've ever seen in a horror movie that you have Andy talking to the doll, but you never see the doll talk back. And so it's one of these big mysteries of all these weird things are happening. What we now learn is that Charles Lee Ray is trying to find a way to get back into a human body, and his connection with Andy, as told to him by a Hindu, not Hindu, really?
Well, voodoo.
Voodoo.
Yeah.
A voodoo man.
Some voodoo guy.
A man, a friend of his, that like he was trying to figure out how to get out of the doll body to get into a human body.
Well, I think that comes second. First he's trying to get revenge, even just as the doll.
True, but that revenge is kind of one of those. He gets revenge on an associate first, and then he goes after the voodoo guy. I believe that's the order.
Yeah, I mean, the detective is on his to-kill list also.
But he can't really get to the detective because the detective and the mom are now friends.
So, yeah, things happen. So, you know, Charles Lee Ray, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Charles Lee Ray tries to sort of, in his embodiment as the doll, he starts to try to enact revenge and find a human body.
Right. But he realizes he can only get a human body if he uses the person he first told the secret to.
Yes.
Hey, I'm actually a human, and I want to get free.
Which turns out to be Andy.
Right.
The poor 6-year-old, or however old he is.
Yeah. Let's say 5 or 6. That wouldn't be stretching it. And you had the mom, as all these incidents start getting closer and closer to home.
Well, they start at home.
Well, yeah,
They do. You know, I mean, without giving too much, the very first sort of violence that occurs is in their home.
Yeah, the babysitter gets thrown out a freaking window.
Yeah, that's violence.
And it's an amazing shot with the Wilhelm scream of sorts. As she doesn't she
The Wilhelm scream?
yeah
Oh.
scream. That kind of sorry, poor interpretation. But without going too much into the plot, let's just say Charles Lee Ray gets more and more desperate, and the more desperate he becomes, the more violent he becomes, eventually revealing himself not only to Andy, but to his mom, and fighting his way to try and get his soul back into the body of a human, to some really great practical effects, I might add, for the time of 1988.
Well, let's get into that part then. Because, I mean, the plot summary, you gave the plot summary, but now let's talk about the movie.
Yeah, let's talk about the movie. What did you think? I thought the camera angles were inventive. I thought Brad Dourif's performance as Chucky was great. I thought even poor little old Andy, Alex Vincent, did great as being a traumatized child. But what did you think?
Well, let's go back to, because the first thing that I noticed, like you mentioned, was the camera work.
Yeah.
This movie, was a somewhat low budget, I guess. But I mean, sort of if you watch like the first 30 minutes of the movie, there's almost no special effects.
Right.
And I was watching this movie with headphones on, and I was loving the music. I mean, just talk about classic horror movie, violin kind of music. Creepy music. And then you're right, the camera angles, the point of view shots where you see the babysitter from Chucky's point of view of sort of 2-3 feet off the ground, running around. I mean, this movie terrifies you with nothing more than just some music and some wacky camera shots.
Yeah, music, wacky camera shots, and
and then suspense. I love that. I love this classic, good old-fashioned horror movie. We don't need to gross you out. We don't need to. I mean, later on, there's more sort of there's more spending on some of the special effects shots.
I was going to say they eventually get there, but the fact that it takes so long to get there and they do such a good job of basically hiding it in a way.
Right.
So
it's kind of a lost art. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of some of the horror movies these days that come out gratuitous and just get more gratuitous as it goes on.
Right.
This is a movie, more like more like Jaws or Halloween, some of these classic 70s ones, where, you're not really seeing the horror aspect for the first 30 to 45 minutes.
Right.
Which only increases
your anxiety and your suspense.
Exactly, it's awesome. So I really appreciated that part of this one. And I totally agree with you. I thought that, what was the actor's name's performance as Andy?
Alex Vincent.
He was great.
He was superb.
There is something really creepy about a 6-year-old talking to a doll where you're right, you don't really see the doll talking, you just hear the 6-year-old and talking about the doll.
Right.
That was, in and of itself, incredibly creepy.
Right, and I love that. But also, and this is odd for me to say about a horror movie because for many people this is the point, but the kills. So inventive.
Yeah.
So inventive.
Yeah.
Especially with the voodoo guy.
The voodoo guy was good. His old accomplice was an interesting one. It's like he thought it through. I agree. And another compliment I have about this movie is the pacing of it.
Oh yeah.
Because there's a sort of slow build, and then there's violence, and then it kind of falls back, and then there's another kill, and then it falls back. And it keeps ratcheting it up, but not in a sort of straight up motion, more in a sort of stair step motion.
Yeah.
That as the movie goes on, you get more and more drawn into it. So that was awesome.
And the battle inside the house is terrific.
The final battle?
Yeah.
My only complaint about that one is it went on a little long.
Okay, I'm not going to deny that.
Yeah.
But I'm still always going to laugh hysterically at Chucky getting shot multiple times. The first time he gets shot, he flies, but he just flies back into the wall, and you're just like, oh, I know that had to hurt. Because, of course, the one thing we forgot to tell you is the human aspect of the soul. Even though it lives in Chucky, he still feels pain. He still bleeds. all those things are still present within Chucky as...
Well, and we sort of learned, I mean, they do a good job explaining that, or at least setting the rules,
Yeah.
that his heart bleeds.
So he has blood within him to lose.
Right, and then that becomes a plot device, is the only way to really kill Chucky is to kill him through the heart.
Yeah.
Which leads to that final series, which is a classic horror kind of trick of, oh, you think it's over, but it's not over.
Yeah, because you burned him in fire, so he's done because you shot him as well.
Yeah, the classic. No, don't walk out of the room.
Like,
no,
did you all
go
learn
back.
anything? Like, there's a clapback. I like to call that the clapback.
Yeah.
But most people basically call that the double death.
Yeah. I think this one had like a quadruple death.
Yeah, pretty much. Because he did sprout 3 different times, I believe. And Catherine Hicks, as naive as she had to play, did a wonderful job. But Alex Vincent, man, and Brad Dourif's performance as Chucky,
right,
amazing.
Yeah, I also want. What was the actress who played his mom?
Catherine Hicks. I know that because she was on Seventh Heaven.
All right, I bought the relationship between her and her son.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Here's a little preview. In a way that the more modern remake, I did not so much buy the relationship between her and her son.
That's gonna be so much fun.
All right,
I cannot wait.
Yeah, I do want to complain about 1 or 2 performances though.
Okay.
Well, one performance.
Detective Mike.
Detective Mike. God, I'm sorry. It's something about his lines.
There could not have been a more flat performance.
Yeah.
Even his death or near deaths were flat.
Which he didn't tell her about. That was weird to me.
Yeah,
I mean, Chucky had just attacked him and tried to kill him, and he sees her, and they're catching up on kind of what's going on, and he neglects to mention that he's been attacked by Chucky.
At no point are you honest about that. What, do you feel like you're going to get thrown in an insane asylum when you've got all these other things that link to that? Like, at what point are you going to be honest with yourself and be like, yeah, Killer Doll just attacked me?
Yeah.
But at that point, knowing what you know about the family, because by then you know the history of the family.
Yeah.
As far as you've done to that present moment, why would you not say anything? It's weird. It's bizarre. It's bad. But I now understand as an adult why that series is so popular. It's not just the kills; it's the creative pace of the whole movie and the whole series. And the reason that series works so well is they keep to that pace consistently throughout all the movies, no matter how more modern that series got.
So wait, real fast before we move to the modern one.
Yes.
You said, did you see this when you were a kid, or you were scared of the commercial?
Commercials as a kid.
Sure.
See it as a kid.
Okay,
Commercials
so
as a
now
kid.
this was your first time seeing it.
Right.
Do you recommend it?
Oh gosh, yeah.
Me too. All right, there we go.
So the second film we want to talk about is the remake of Child's Play, starring Gabriel Bateman and what is her name? It's gonna
Aubrey Plaza.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Aubrey Plaza as the mother. Basically what we have Gabriel Bateman playing Andy, and we have Aubrey Plaza as the mother, and we have one of the best voice actors working today as Chucky. And that would be Mr. Mark Hamill. And Mark Hamill knows voices very well. He's done Batman the Animated Series. He's done so many animated projects that he should probably be royalty by this point. He should be in the Mel Blanc category of people who do voices.
Ooh.
So here's my thing. Oh, and the movie was directed by a guy named Tom Holland, which I find really weird.
Yeah, I looked at some other movies that... No, the first one was Tom Holland.
First one was Tom Holland, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know who did the second one.
Don't know who did the remake, but that's not important because I'll be blunt with you all. Don't see this movie.
That's your review in a nutshell, huh?
No, I have to explain the plot because the plot's different this time around.
It is, and yes, go ahead. Give the plot summary.
I'm emotionally struggling with what I'm about to say. So Chucky in this version is not a serial killer who is put in a doll's body. He is an AI that, because of the cruel treatment in the sweat factory that the toy is built, the inventor disables all the safety guards, and as a result, that doll can learn from anything it sees and duplicate it. Problem is, instead of Andy being 6 years old, he's more like 12 to 13, and
Thank you.
the kids have violent tendencies. They want to watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre. They say things out of anger more quickly than anyone in this world because they're still processing their emotions. But for Chucky, this is in real time mentally. So when Andy feels anger, Chucky feels that equal anger and wants to exact revenge. I'll give you
For example, on his mother's boyfriend.
Well, no, I was going to go even further than that. The
Right.
cat.
The cat, yes.
The cat, as he's petting the cat decides to scratch Andy. And Chucky's recompense to that is, okay, I'm going to choke the life out of the cat. He doesn't actually get to, because, of course, Andy stops him. But that doesn't mean he's not going to kill the cat later, because, of course, Andy had said another thing about the cat that basically seals the cat's fate into death.
Right. Okay, so plot summary from that point forward, because I think you're right. The key difference is the way Chucky becomes what he is completely a different approach.
Right.
And the other key difference is Andy in this movie is about 12 as opposed to about 6.
Right.
So beyond that, the story is kind of the same, with I would say the exception being that the sort of climactic scene becomes this group
mall scene where all the toys come to life.
As opposed to being in the apartment.
Right, and it reminds me a lot of another movie that I saw a long time ago, and I don't know if you've seen it, but Small Soldiers.
I saw Small Soldiers a long time ago.
Starring Gregory Smith, Tommy Lee Jones, and Kirsten Dunst.
Yeah.
It reminds me a lot of that. Here's my problem with this movie. Mark Hamill does a fantastic job voice acting. Gabriel Bateman is a credible older Andy. I hate Aubrey Plaza in this movie because
Me too.
I didn't want to say this, but I'm gonna have to. I have to do some form of slut shaming here because she makes out with her boyfriend and isn't really paying attention to her kid at all because she's working long hours at the store. She has no connection to this kid whatsoever. Mike, the cop, who is down the hall in the little apartment building that they share,
Detective Mike
has more of a relationship to Andy than his own mom.
Yeah, I did not accept that this was a mother and son.
Not at all.
Yeah,
babysitter and son, almost.
Yeah. So I mean, for me, you're so right, and that detracted mightily from the movie because you don't really buy into the characters because they don't have human relationships with each other.
Right.
So, could not agree with you more. All right, next criticism.
Chucky is not a psychopath, and he needs to be for this to work.
Okay, go on.
So Chucky is kind of like a person. He's like a puppy. When a puppy learns something and does a negative behavior, you chide it and it stops. But it happens over time. Chucky is one of those things where you learn it and it sticks. There is no relearning of, I shouldn't do this instead. Because at that point, Chucky's like, this is the only way I know how to take care of my friend. And there wasn't really a reset for that, for Chucky.
So I agree with you, but I found very interesting the idea in this version that rather than being witchcraft and voodoo that created Chucky, it is, like you said, artificial intelligence and sort of programming and learning. I did enjoy that kind of societal commentary about technology and how more in this version we created Chucky.
Yeah.
As opposed to this single, bad individual in the first version who created Chucky.
I will say this, the concept of this version of Child's Play is not at fault. It is the relationships that are at fault. It is the lack of clarification from Andy himself that is at fault for when things go wrong. From the first time when the cat died, your mistake was, okay, Chucky, I say things out of anger sometimes that I do not mean. If I say that I want my mother's boyfriend dead, like I don't like him and he needs not to disappear, I don't actually mean that. I just don't like him as a person. He doesn't spend any time clarifying that point. If he had just said that, Chucky probably still would have done odd, weird things every now and then, but it wouldn't have been as frequent and as escalating as this Child's Play movie. And speaking of things that escalate, this movie escalates way too fast.
Yeah, the pacing, I couldn't agree more. This is an example to me of the difference between modern horror movies and classic horror movies. The pacing, like you say, it just goes, it speeds up, and from that point forward, it just has to keep increasing the shock value.
Mm-hmm.
And they keep, going higher and higher on the gore in order to sort of artificially increase the shock value. And that, to me, is a criticism. Because when you need to have some of the goriness of this movie, it was pretty bad. We'll talk more about one of the examples in a second, but the guy who Chucky dropped onto a circular saw.
Yeah.
Yeah, sort of maintenance guy in the building.
Does he need that?
No.
Not really, no.
No. I mean, it absolutely is not necessary for them to have that amount of gore in terms of how he kills this person. It just speaks, it's
also the most drawn out kill I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Point that out.
It's just, it's a cheap way of getting a scare. How about that?
There is no fear in this movie. At no point do you have fear in this movie.
Ooh, okay, so here we go. I will say one thing about this movie. This is the first movie I have seen in probably about 15 years that made me cover my eyes.
For what reason?
The package wrapped in gift wrap.
Oh, God.
When she takes him down the hall and says, "Let's go give that present to her right now." I mean, that I gotta admit that now that scene, for the audience at home, has actually no gore in it at all.
Yeah.
There's just a wrapped present that we know what's inside.
Right. Should we tell the audience what it is?
No.
All right, fine.
Yeah.
You want to
There's
leave that?
just a wrapped present that
Shaped like a watermelon.
That they take down the hall, and there's this wonderfully long, drawn out 3 or 4 minute thing about, let's open it right now. No, but and then there's another scene with it later.
Yeah.
And I was anyway, when I was watching those scenes, that was the one time where I was like, no, I can't watch.
But you realize that has nothing to do with the fear of somebody living or dying.
I know. It was I gotta give props to the movie. It was a wonderful sort of moment of suspense, and again had zero to do with actually anything else.
And that's
it was just
the
a little
entire
wonderful
problem
scene.
of this film is that when we want to root for somebody, we have to be invested in the relationships, and when the relationships aren't there, it doesn't matter. The nearest thing to good relationships he has are his friends.
Right.
Who are actually decent human beings.
Right.
Which is really weird, because they should be complete dicks.
Why?
Because that's how it goes in those movies.
Oh, okay.
The bullies bully you, and then Chucky goes after them. That would be the archetype. That would be the trope. But they're good humans.
Which they play with a little bit, because, and I wouldn't say that he really bullies him, but Andy's rival, the
African American kid, right?
Yeah, who Chucky sort of changes sides and becomes his doll for a while, pretends to.
Yeah.
I like that his character was not a one-dimensional bully or asshole, if I could say that.
Yeah.
I like that his character was he actually kind of helped out in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you're right. I mean, the relationships, going back to that, they were not real.
Nope.
His relationship with his friends was not really realistic. His relationship, especially with his mom. His relationship with Detective Mike even, which I gotta admit, again, small things, but This movie, the remake did a good job with a couple of things. One, I did like the way they explained Chucky away in the first few minutes. You just kind of got past that. And then the second was because they bypassed the whole thing with the detective at the beginning, they had to introduce the detective. So he just kind of walks up to Andy and says, "Hey, I'm Detective Mike." I was like, all right, that's one way to do it. Yeah. So, that, but you're right, that relationship was more meaningful than his, but even so, I didn't totally buy it. I like Detective Mike being a good guy, kind of checking up on the kid, but I couldn't buy their rapport.
There's so many other problems with this movie, we don't have much time to discuss them all.
So, okay, well, let's wrap up on this one. Your recommendation is not to see this movie.
Yeah, definitely don't see the remake. Don't do it. As much as I love Mark Hamill, it's not shot as well. Everything is a jump scare rather than genuine fear that you feel. And Aubrey Plaza gives pretty much her worst performance ever.
Yeah.
You can't buy her as a mom. You can buy her more as...
Wait, I buy her more as the returns clerk that she is at like a Walmart kind of store.
Yeah.
I bought that part of her performance so much more than I bought her, performance as a mom.
And she seems more like an older sister than a mom.
Right.
In the entire film. Because who in the world makes out with their boyfriend minutes before their son gets home?
That I'm not going to comment on, but other parts, yeah.
In the trashiest way possible. It was the way it was framed. Speaking of framing, this movie is framed horribly. In pretty much all aspects. And I'm just going to spoil this for people. The death of Chucky in this one pales in comparison to the original.
Agreed.
Pales entirely in comparison to the original. The kills are less inventive, not even because they're more gory, but because...
There's less inventive.
They're less inventive, and, if they were more inventive and took their time like the first one, then I wouldn't care as much, but really...
Yeah. And there weren't as many, which I think that leads to, as in the first one, they took more time with each one, there was more of a story to each one. In the remake, it was just kill after kill after.
Yeah, it's, cat, boyfriend, cop's mom.
And then everybody else.
And then everybody else, as many as we can get.
I'm going to say this. The only way I would recommend this movie is in the way that we watched it, as a side-by-side comparison with the original.
Right.
If you want that kind of a sort of discussion, great, go see the remake. Otherwise, I am fully in agreement with you. Save your time. You don't need to watch Chucky's Play 2018.
And
Child's Play.
2019.
2019?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I feel really guilty saying that because I wanted to love this film so much. Oh, also, I'm going to put this out there. Last thing. Chucky in the original is creepy.
Yes.
You don't want to be near that.
No. Right.
Chucky in 2019, not creepy.
I totally agree.
Not creepy at all. I mean... Well,
not as creepy.
Like, you get the red eyes and the more expressive cheeks, but that's it.
The red eye was stupid.
With Child's Play 1, not only are his eyes seething with an anger you've never seen before in your life, but he has teeth! Teeth, ladies and gentlemen! When have you seen a doll with teeth? It's not a common thing! So that when he yells and shouts at Andy, going for him with a knife, you're like, oh, something's gonna go down. We gotta stop Chucky from being an annihilator of children. Like, there's fear there, but when you look at the Chucky doll in 2019...
All right.
Puppet people, great job on the animatronics for Chucky in 2019's face. But my goodness, was that a lifeless doll for something that's supposed to be an intelligent AI?
And all right, you got to see us out because we're going to be running over if we keep continuing to criticize the doll. So give us our final words on this.
Our final words on this are, if you are a horror enthusiast at all, see the original Child Play. If you're a horror enthusiast at all and somebody gives you this as a gift for a Blu-ray or a DVD for 2019, don't watch the remake, just put it to the Walmart bin. Because it's bad. It's really bad. Don't see it. And we'll be back in a couple of weeks to talk to you about more films. I'm Chike Coleman, that's Sandford Hess, and this, partially regrettably, has been Real Reviews Rewind. We'll see you guys in a couple weeks. Bye, guys.